How you doing? Nice to meet you.
Yes.
I'm Michael Ray Charles.
Hey.
What's the reason for the blackface?
Well, the blackface is to comment on the presence of the past.
Okay.
Man has always tried to cover up what has been most ugly about man,
Right.
or mankind.
Right.
So issues about race in this country, race
We're still
relations.
conflicted about it.
Right, exactly.
The bottom line is that we're dealing with American history.
I'm called a sellout, and people question my blackness. A lot of people accuse me of perpetuating a stereotype, and I think there's a fine line between perpetuating something and questioning something. And I like to get as close to it as possible. I was in graduate school at the University of Houston, and I was in search of an image that could best articulate Americanism, could sum up what is happening, or what has happened, or what was happening with blackness. A friend handed me this, and I said thanks, and so I tossed it in the corner. And one day I'm cleaning out, sweeping out the studio, and I picked this up and began to really look at it. This led to a series of pieces. Actually, it's the first piece, which was included in an exhibition in which I made 50 little carriages, like baby carriages. And I displayed these as if they were stars on the flag. People began to knock over the glass case, and on many occasions condemn the presence of such imagery. It was the first time I got a sense of not only the seriousness involved with use of these images, but the emotion, the emotional presence of the past. I find beauty in odd places. You know, sometimes I'm driving or walking and I might just stop and freeze. Maybe a sign, or where the light hits a building, the way that the shadow is thrown across the street. I think beauty embodies what we consider ugly as well as what we consider beautiful. For me, beauty is history. Beauty is having lived. Beauty is evidence. It's a mark.
Come back, baby.
What's that, buddy?
I won.
You did? You won again?
I beat you.
Oh, you wait.
I still won.
You did again?
Yeah.
Several. Etruscan image was one. This one appears to be heads of white women and Nero, late 6th century BC. One of the things that I'm quite interested in is making sense of how these images may be connected to images like this. One of the things that I've discovered is that a lot of these Hellenistic period Greco-Roman pieces were collected at the turn of the century. Once these images were collected and then displayed, they were appropriated by early American illustrators and are used to inform their own work, perhaps. This is a work in progress, triptych, which is eventually will read classical, modern, and then postmodern in the last panel. This piece is about the influence of the classical image upon early 20th century image of blacks, as well as late to early 21st century image of a black person. The classical image comes from, as mentioned before, Greco-Roman pottery. And I thought it was interesting the juxtapositioning of this image with this particular image, which comes from cast iron bank at the 20th century mass-produced item here. I've been dealing with the Sambo image for 10 years now, and for the life of me, when I think I got it figured out, I just realized I don't. I think people today, they operate from an emotional place when they see these images because they think of the past as being something that happened and that these concepts don't linger, but these concepts continue to affect us in many ways. I think that these images are just as much white as they are black. You gotta think of how these images were used in American culture. They were everywhere. I think it was linked to early marketing practices, early advertising, linking a product to romance, a romantic notion, the Old South, the caricature, the Sambo, the darky, the pickaninnies. I think these images are very much a part of who we are as blacks and very much a part of who we are as Americans. Oh, this is my favorite. My kids keep asking me for this one. Notice the Tarzan image. You really look at this image of the Tarzan, it's a very beautiful image. It's soft and subtle curves, very much like Speed Racer, very much like Elvis Presley, the black hair, dark eyebrows, blue eyes. A beautiful image. And compared to this image, anger, beast-like features. I think it's the same message we've been receiving for years. In this particular case, if it's not said directly, it's said indirectly, and it's understood indirectly and enforced on, I think, subconscious levels that, black is bad.
Whether is doubt, faith, whether is despair, hope, whether is darkness, light, whether is sadness, joy. Grant that our not too much, seems to be considered, ask to be so. As to be understood, as to understand, to be loved and obeyed. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Eric. As long as my kids are in a place where they are productive and the environment helps them to flourish and grow, I'm happy, I'm fine. I'll sacrifice not being in New York. What's important to me is that they get a good start. And what's important to me that they're well prepared to live in this world. In America, wherever they choose to live, but they're well prepared to do so.
What can the matter be? It can't be too serious. We can't talk it over. Living in this misery, darling, you can't make my life all over.
Starting a series, Rock and Bold, which for me begins to explore notions about minstrelsy and blackface and how that being the first pop cultural phenomenon in this country. This is not a malicious piece. I mean, I attempt to explore several things here. It's very layered, very layered. The reference to blackface in relationship to the Elvis Presley image. The blackface image can flip-flop for me. It could reference a male, a female, a white male in a black context, a black male definitely in a white context, Asian, whomever, someone is small, someone is, someone who, or anyone that is othered. Elvis was considered a hillbilly. His manager mentioned that if he could get a white boy that could sing like a nigger, he could make $1 million, and that he did. And a little Southern comfort has helped us all. It's a jab, like a little reminder that all of the work that was done by a slave was free labor that has led to the construction of this country. So. The Lincoln coin itself has become a co-signature of mine. It's almost like a logo. I use the Lincoln head because it's like a lingering question. What exactly were we emancipated from? Was it enslavement? Yes, but on another level, there were other devices that made up the gap that managed to, again, enslave us again, I guess, but in a different manner. I like to say that one can make change, one can make a difference. So I think that each painting that I do can evoke thought and encourage someone to perhaps consider things a little differently than they've understood it in the past.
To order a 2-tape set of Art 21, Art in the 21st Century on video cassette, or the companion book to the program, call PBS Home Video at 1-800-PLAY-PBS. To learn more about Art 21, Art in the 21st Century, and to download the free teacher's guide, please visit PBS online at pbs.org.